Yoga teacher trainees, the first thing they often ask me is, hey, how can I open my own studio? The first thing I always say is, well, word of warning, opening a studio has almost nothing to do with yoga teaching. I opened my first yoga studio in 2006. I had been teaching for a couple of years, very full-time, like 15 to 21 classes a week. And I thought, hey, the next step is I need my own studio, and this will be a great place for me to go deeper as a teacher. Here's what happens. When you open a studio, you spend about 90% of your time on management, operations, accounting, cleaning mats, organizing, scheduling is a nightmare in yoga studios, and very little time teaching. In my first studio, I used to teach 2 or 3 classes per week. That's all I could manage, and even those classes were very difficult. So the first thing you need to know if you'll open a studio, you stop teaching, which for most people is a deal killer. Number 2 thing you need to keep in mind is studios are expensive. People look around at the studio, this is my studio, they look around and they see hardwood floors, big empty room, must be cheap. It's not cheap at all. It costs about as much as to open a restaurant or a salon or anything else. To give you a rough rule of thumb, a little studio like this might cost you a couple $100,000 just to get open. So it's a big, big investment and a big risk. It often takes 3, 5, 7, 10 years to get back to zero. With all of those caveats out of the way, if you still want to open a studio, absolutely do it cautiously. Like any business, it's high risk. In any local market, whether it's restaurant or hair salon or yoga studio, typically, if 5 of them open, within 5 years, 4 of them will be out of business. This is just small business statistics, so it's high risk. I say all this as a studio owner. I've now been in the studio business since 2006, on and off. I currently own 3 studios, and I'm glad I did, but I wish I had gone into it with my eyes open because I suffered a lot along the way, thinking that I was doing something wrong, thinking that I was bad at business. And the reality is, to do pretty well as a yoga studio owner, you have to be really, really good at business. So a couple of things to think about. The other thing I always tell people is, what's your real goal? If your goal is to teach more, to have a platform, to have a stage, to have a place where you can exhibit, you don't need to open your own studio. The best analogy I always give people is, let's say you're a musician, you're a singer-songwriter, and you play guitar and you sing songs. You don't need to go buy a concert venue. You just need to go around playing. If you're a yoga teacher, just play your set. There are yoga studios all over the world that are super happy to host you. You don't need to worry about if the plumbing works in the bathroom, which is always a constant issue, or if the lights are working, or if the roof is leaky. You can go play your songs, teach your class without all of that hassle. So make sure it's the right decision. If you have other questions about studio ownership, feel free to get in touch.